All right, some cautions about sampling. Now, voluntary response bias. Okay, voluntary response bias uh, is specific when the individuals are not directly asked to participate. Like, for example, sending out a survey and going, "What do you think of this?" or "What do you think of that?" and then having passionate people respond. That's a voluntary response bias. Now, a response bias are people are more prone to lying if the question asked about them is illegal or unpopular behavior. Or people also have a tendency to embellish the past. You just have to be ready for that. So that's a response bias. It's huge. It's very difficult to prevent. You have to just be careful about how you word the question. A non-response bias is when the individual selected for the sample is left out or refuses to participate. So in other words, you work this entire time, you've done a cluster sample, and you've worked it down, and then all of a sudden, like for example, you did a cluster selection of all the math students in the world or in Reno, and you got it down to your 5 schools, and then all of a sudden the principal changes their mind and says, no, I don't want you to do the study here. Well, now you've just lost some of those people, and you have to take some time to actually go back and start it again to be able to work with it. So it's a really, really hard one to work with. For example, here's another one with the non-response bias. If you were to do a If you were to do a survey over the internet, you would only be getting people that visited those type of sites and had internet. Not everyone has internet still. Amazingly enough to know, but it just does happen. Okay, so that's a non-response bias. Now, an undercoverage occurs when a potentially data-changing part of the population is not randomly included in the sample. This typically results in biased results as the group's data or opinions are not reflected correctly. So, for example, a survey conducted in writing would be excluding the people who don't know how to write. So that's a huge part. That's not a huge part of the population, but if it has to do with your type of survey that you're working with, that is a huge part. Okay. Also, the wording of a question needs to be very careful to not have any type of bias in there. Okay. It is so huge. Need to be able to, uh, ask the question and then not have it stray a person towards a certain way or against a certain way. Like for example, uh, with Obama and the Democrats losing the Senate recently, you could straight up go, okay, what do you think of Obama's poor job of keeping the Democrats afloat? And then people would give least strongly worded one way or another towards Obama, those type of questions. So those won't be as good. A non poorly question or poorly worded question would be, what are your opinions on Obama's second term? Okay, or in the last 4 years, what is your opinion on Obama's foreign policy? Something that doesn't elicit a strong response one way or another. Okay, but sometimes if you're asking a person about Obama, period, that tends to even screw that up. So you probably might want to say, what is your opinion on the last 4 years of our president and everything? And I mean, even the word Obama is inflammatory towards some people, and some people he's without reproach. So you have to be careful about actually screwing that up. I mean, guys, if biases were like nickels, I would be a rich man, and everyone else would be too. Okay. Please understand that sampling's just not everything's going to go your way, and sampling error. You should expect a small discrepancy even from the best of sampling design. These describe sampling errors. Okay, for example, the exit polls in 1948 in the election race for president between Harry Truman and Thomas Dewey, the polls that were did sampling just before the election were predicting a Dewey victory, but the polls did not employ random sampling. Based upon the polls, the Chicago Tribune declared Thomas Dewey the winner of the infamous headline, Dewey defeats Truman. And Truman, of course, won the election, became the 33rd president of the United States, making the Chicago Tribune look awfully foolish. So you just have to be aware of what kind of sampling you're using and whether or not it's going to give you an error or anything, okay? All right, but that's it for cautions and sampling, and that's it for the first semester. I'll talk to you guys in second semester. Have a great day. Bye.